Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. Of course, I am your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Joining me in Studio B from the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, Krista Tweedy. Beyond BMR goes beyond the mysteries of the world. We take you on a deep dive into all the different rabbit holes, realms, realities. How do they all come full circle? From Bigfoot to Dogman, UFOs to aliens, time travel to the paranormal. Again, how do these phenomena meet up? We have a great show. It's Christmas time. We've got Dr. Dennis Carroll. We're going to talk all things weird right around this time of year. Is Santa Claus really a warrior? Does he fight off evil spirits? Stay tuned. You'll find out shortly. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Mystery Rob on YouTube, Texas Front Porch on YouTube, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, all found on YouTube. Like us, share us, turn on the alert bell. You can find us at iHeartRadio, KPNL Radio, Spreaker Radio, where all podcasts are found. We're now on every platform for podcasting now. That got dropped a couple weeks ago, so go check that out if you're a podcast person. Don't forget the Super Chat is open. The Super Chat's a great way to help support what we all do around here. That is appreciated. Long after the show ends, the Super Thanks is also available. Become a BMR pirate. Join up. Join today. Become a pirate. Thanks so much for that. With that being said, we've got a lot of things going on throughout the week. As you all know, Texas Front Porch comes on Mondays, 7 Central, 8 o'clock in the East. That's a new time. Tuesdays is Beyond BMR, 8 Central, 9 in the East with myself and Krista. Wednesdays on Texas Front Porch, it's a Diva Dimension, 9 Central, 10 in the East. Thursday, you got myself and Tex, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 12 Central, 1 in the East on Thursdays. Later on Thursday night, you have the Blondes, the Booze Paranormal Podcast, 8 Central, 9 in the East. Friday, the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo, they're back at you. 8 Central, 9 in the East. Tex also on Texas Front Porch is True Crime with him and Daniel Diva, Infamous Minds, 2 Central, 3 o'clock in the East. Moving on. For everybody who's bought my book, Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. Thanks for everybody who has bought it. I do appreciate that. The link is pinned up in the chat. You can find it on my YouTube page as well. For those of you that have bought it, please, when Amazon comes calling, leave a review. It's all analytics these days, and analytics helps promote the book a little bit. For thank you in advance for that. And thanks for all of you that have bought it. Finally, before I bring up the lovely Krista, June 7th and 8th. Yeah, it's 2024, and yeah, it's Christmas time, and yeah, you're probably not thinking about conferences, but put this in the back of your head. The Alabama Bigfoot Conference at the Anderson Performing Arts Center. Tickets $30 online, $35 at the door. Tex will be the master of ceremonies. Speakers include Bart Nunnally, Daryl Denton, the Blondes and the Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and good old BMR. Thank you in advance for that. And with that being said, I'm going to bring up the lovely Krista. Hello, hey. Krista. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. You know, it's that time of year. We got a great guest. I always bring Dennis on every this time of year. You know, we talk Krampus. We talk the spirits of the holidays, the fight against good and evil during this time.
Yep.
And it's always a great show. And Dennis is just a wealth of knowledge. We'll be bringing him up shortly. So
well, I got to tell you, like, I sat backstage with him for 5 minutes. I learned more in 5 minutes than I have in the last month. Seriously, like, he's a wealth of information.
Yeah, you know, I could sit down and talk with Dennis probably for 8 hours. It's just that my arm would cramp up. We're talking on the phone, so I prefer just to get him on something like this,
right?
Or on FaceTime, where you don't have to have your arm occupied all the time. So.
Right.
But Dennis does it all. He's an author, an investigator for all things strange. I'm not going to put words in his mouth, and I want to get this started. I'm going to bring up Mr. Dennis Carroll.
Good evening.
Hey, Dennis. Good evening. Welcome back.
All right. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's always great
Always
having you
enjoyed.
on. Think you're one of the fan favorites. You're on quite often, a couple, 3 times a year, especially this time of year. Because as I said
Mhm.
earlier, you are a wealth of knowledge in all aspects. So, with that being said, for some folks that are a little unfamiliar with you, Dennis, why don't you just give everybody just a brief little introduction on yourself, about yourself.
Okay, well, I've been involved in the paranormal, all aspects of it: cryptozoology, UFOlogy, spiritual research for 55 plus years now. I'm a lot older than I look, I hope. And it's been a very interesting journey, definitely. I'm an author. I have my own web page. I've done tons and tons of research and investigation over the years. Had a lot of strange experiences, and trying to document a lot of that. And it's like I say, it's been a very interesting road to travel down.
Mm-hmm.
It never gets old with me, and the longer I stay with it, the more I like it. Definitely.
Yeah, well, it never gets old with me because I don't have repetitive guests on. And it's not repetitive every 3 or 4 months with you because I learn something new and different every time. We're gonna get into a little bit of Krampus, and I know you've told it twice in the last 2 years, but every time you talk on it, there's always something different, right? That you
Mhm.
bring up that I never heard from the first time or the second time. And so the guests, you're our guest, but the audience is really in for a treat tonight. So thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
No
Yeah, he
problem.
was Dennis was telling me some unwritten history backstage too. Maybe we can talk about with Washington Irving and cool stuff. Edgar Allan Poe, the whole 9 yards. So
Well, we've got the right man for that. And Dennis,
yep.
as my guest, I'm gonna let you start wherever you want this evening. Instead of me, I'm gonna let you, in the spirit of Christmas, you have the platter right in front of you. What do you want to start?
Okay. Well, it's a big platter, definitely.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
got a
Hey,
lot of interesting stuff
I
on it.
I would get fat at your house. I can tell you right now with that smorgasbord you're
I
about to
tell you
unload.
what, I love this time of the year because it is one of the special as the year rolls. One of the very special times of the year, not just because of what it means for a lot of us and what it symbolizes, but it's also a time with like very much like Halloween, Walpurgis Night, Beltane, all these other different things. It is a period of time when the veil is thinnest, supposedly. There's that mystic type thing in the air, that magic that's there, that's usually not at other times of the year. And I think our thoughts and our minds turn toward the more spiritual aspects of our universe and the things around, the unseen things around us. You look at Santa Claus; he's one big symbol of that unseen. We'd all like to catch him sooner or later. I would definitely, but he's sort of unseen. He's sort of like the paranormal. It's there, it's there, but it's very hard to grasp sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Christmas is all about. The Christmas has got a lot of that connection with to it, but it has and I tell this to a lot of people. I've done a lot of shows on it. There is a dark side of Christmas that a lot of people never really think about. There is a darker side, a more pagan kind of a side to it. We know the religious aspects of it, the birth of Christ, Christmas. Christmas means Christ Mass. We know that. That's what the church is symbolized. But this goes back further, thousands of years further back than the church. Christmas has its roots deep in paganism and deep in our folklore and our history, much deeper than we really truly realize. We call it by Christmas, but it's mostly, I think the ancient Romans called it Saturnalia. They had something very similar to it, but we have always, whatever culture or society, even the Native Americans for that fact, celebrated the winter solstice. And we're coming up on that, very close to it. The winter solstice, which is the darkest and longest night of the year. That's spooky enough by itself
Yeah,
when you
sure.
think about it. Yeah. And so that commemorates, all of this commemorates the dying of the year.
Okay.
The symbol of everything dying around us, death is prevalent. But in the midst of death, there's the hope of life again. And that's the brightness of the season. That's what you look forward to. And you know, I've said this before about ancient peoples. If you've ever been out in the woods on a dark, cold night, you really appreciate it when that sun comes up in the morning. Definitely. And
Yes.
when you think about it, these people were tied to the sun and to the seasons. You know, they had to go by that. You didn't go to a grocery store back then and buy what you wanted. You had to go out and get it. You had to go find it. In order to survive, your very life depended upon the seasons and how you handle those seasons. And the dying time of the year meant you better have your stores in stock. You better be ready for it. You better have your wood cut, or you wouldn't make it to see spring. You know, so this was very life and death for these people, and that's why they commemorated it so very seriously, without a doubt.
Do you think, again, with Christmas now, depending where you want to go with it, people in general, we have Christmas, of course, the birth of Christ, and then of course we know about the tale, the folklore behind Santa Claus and delivering presents. There's a big story behind how that even got started, but there's also, in my mind, there's always going to be energy out there or forces out there that want to break that up. They want to take away people's happiness. They want it to be a downer for people. And are there additional spirits or protectors during this time of year that are maybe out in full force to look for that, to make sure that enhances our holiday time? Because it's not happy for everybody, as we know. Unfortunately, this time of year, sadness also plays a great role with hope and a lot and happiness. So do you think there's anybody watching, maybe a la Santa? I don't want to get into the whole Santa Claus bit, but do you think that there are certain protectors of our universe are playing when it comes to these time of year?
Well, you look at the very image of Santa Claus. As I was telling Krista earlier, the actual name was called by the Dutch peoples and Scandinavian peoples Santa Claus, which that's what we get Santa Claus from. But his real name, of course, actually was Saint Nicholas. He was a saint who lived in Myra, Turkey, but back about a couple of centuries back, and he is the beginning of the tradition of Santa Claus that the church brought in. Okay, Saint Nicholas, he's the patron saint of children, sailors, and stuff like that. And actually, by the way, he was Greek. He was a Greek. I have a friend in Greece, and I say, well, you can always brag you had Santa Claus first, okay? But he goes back to being a Greek, actually. And although he lived in Turkey Minor, the Myra part of it, he was actually Greek. And the story goes that he was a very rich man. He was blessed with riches, and he had a very giving, loving heart. This was what made him a saint, of course. And he wanted to share his wealth with other people. And one story goes that he heard about a man who had three very nice looking, very lovely daughters. And back in those days, if you had a daughter, you had to have a dowry with her in order for her to get married. You had to have a certain amount of wealth, to offer her future husband. He had no money. He was a very, very poor man, and he was on the very verge of actually selling his three daughters into prostitution. Wow. And St. Nicholas heard about this. So he supposedly, there's two versions of this. He either dropped 3 bags of gold down the chimney, one for each daughter, or he threw them through the window, whichever the case may be. He might have threw them through the window. They supposedly got or landed in their stockings that were hanging up. They had their stockings supposedly hanging up to dry by the fire or whatever. And that's where you get the filling the stockings thing at. Mm-hmm. And so he actually kept them from being sold into slavery and prostitution. Mm. That's just one of the stories of one of the supposedly good things he did. So that's the true basis of the Santa Claus we kind of know about, okay? Because the church is there. But he goes back further than that. And he is a darker aspect of this. And he is really connected. I don't know if you're familiar with the Green Man.
No.
Ever heard of the Green Man? He is sort of the spirit, the protector of the forest. And he is called the Green Man because in summer he's very green. He's got the green leaves. But in autumn, the leaves turn on him. But in winter, he has holly, ivy, and mistletoe about him. He's the green man. He symbolizes nature, the spirit of nature, and the eternal spirit of nature. The green, the holly, the ivy, the mistletoe, they symbolize immortality. They symbolize eternity. And that's what the green man symbolizes. And there's a big, strong connection between the green man and Santa Claus, okay? Because if you look at the way the green man is described, he's got furs on him. He wears furs. He's got the leaves on him, of course. But he's got a long white beard. Who does that sound like? Okay. It sounds very much like Santa Claus, okay? Well, here's another weird connection to that. The green man is also connected to a certain god by the name of Odin, or sometimes called Woden.
Okay.
He is described as an old man who carries a staff, dressed in furs, with a long white beard, and sneaks around and watches people. Who does that sound like? There you go.
Yeah.
You got Santa Claus laid out for you here. But here's some interesting things. The green man is looked upon as sort of a protector, but he's more of a protector of nature itself than us in that respect. But he is benevolent. In other words, he's not a harmful type thing. But so he kind of symbolizes, like I said earlier, that giving, loving spirit of Santa Claus. The sharing, wanting to give, help people, and all that. That's kind of like the green man. And the green man, by the way, here's your Bigfoot connection. The green man is connected to the wild man. I know you've heard of the wild man, who is
for
seen
sure.
a lot. There's a big connection with him and Bigfoot, supposedly. And if you go back to biblical times, there is a connection with him and Esau, the son of Jacob. You've heard of Esau, who was born with a lot of red hair on him, by the way. There's a connection with that, too, supposedly, the Nephilim kind of a thing. I'm not going to get into that tonight. That's a whole different story. But anyway, that's the green man, and that's the nature spirit thing going on. And as Krista and I talked about this before the show, and she brought up a good point about Krampus, and I'm going to talk about Krampus in a minute. Krampus and the Wendigo are very similar in some attributes.
Wow.
Well, the Wendigo, it's not really, a lot of times we get in our mind the Wendigo is a monster. It looks like, it's got that skull on him. He's awful, dead-looking thing. And he can look like that if he wants to, but he is basically looked upon as a spirit. Okay. And a lot of these things, Rob and Krista, are connected to spiritual entities. You've got Old Man Winter, the dark spirit of Old Man Winter. They say he walks through the forest in winter looking for souls to reap. That's why a lot of people supposedly die in winter. Of course, that can be attributed a lot to what we said earlier about, if you weren't ready for winter will get you. Definitely. So you got a lot of weird connections, a lot of spiritual unseen connections, and all this is wrapped up in Christmas, the solstice, the winter solstice, whatever name you want to give it. And a lot of these connections run deep throughout all of our folklore, our culture and traditions, whether we know it or not. You take the Yule log, for instance. The Yule log is a pagan tradition. You took the log that you burned this year and brought it over into the next year and burned it. That way you kept your luck going. But if the Yule log went out, there went your luck. That was a very bad sign, a very bad potent. You didn't want your Yule log to go out, definitely. So you have a lot of traditions like that connected with Christmas time.
Yeah, and you did mention briefly about the Wendigo and similarities with Krampus. What I know about the Wendigo, isn't that the being or the entity that is more cannibalistic, and it kind of it feeds off the flesh of humans, and by consuming the flesh kind of steals your soul type of thing, and or they can also possess you, and if you were to rid yourself of this possession, you had to unfortunately take the life of a loved one or a blood relative. Now, where Krampus, I heard, I could be wrong. I should remember this from last year, but isn't that the folklore or the legend behind them eating younger children? So I could see where there might be a connection between the two.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's another, I think, distinct connection. Now, you look at the Wendigo. He was very pervaded among the North American Native Americans, especially in the northern part of North America, where winters were very bad. He symbolized that cannibalistic hunger, starvation that winter could bring on. That was his symbol. That was what he symbolized. He was death. Like I said, old man winter walking through the woods, waiting to reap your soul. That's what that symbolized in that way. And you take a look at Krampus, who we always call the Christmas demon. And there are certain instances. Here's another connection. There are certain instances where it says Krampus can possess people, just like the Wendigo can possess people to a certain extent. It's almost like a demonic possession. There are certain murders that take place, certain bad things that happen around Christmas that can be, sometimes there is, I call it a Krampus connection. And it's very strange. But if he truly is the demon of Christmas, it wouldn't be that far-fetched that he wouldn't be involved in stuff like that. Definitely.
I had just, for the very first time, watched the movie Krampus like a week ago. And, it's what I watched it. And I told Letitia Nunley, I said, man, it's got a Wendigo in there. Hey, Kringle. Sorry, my dog's scratching himself. But I was like, it's got a Wendigo in there, and that was kind of cool. It really kept my interest, and just the scary.
And there's another connection, Krista, with the Rougarou. That you have in the southern bayou countries and stuff like that. It's very similar in many aspects to Wendigo. I have to wonder if it's not maybe a southern version of that. You didn't have you had very hostile living conditions further south you went to, just like you do in the north. So you have that connection thing going on there. But here's the interesting thing about Krampus. He symbolizes the dark side of Christmas, whereas in Santa symbolizes the bright side. The church kind of got behind him, but they certainly didn't get behind Krampus, okay? Because he definitely is an evil, dark reputation to him. And here's the thing about Krampus, like Rob said, he would not only whip you with your switches, he would eat you. That's not good. Definitely not anytime.
Wow.
That is not good.
Yeah.
But he has if you look at the way that Krampus is depicted, and a lot of they would scare little kids to death with this in some of the like German places and some of the Scandinavian and Swedish towns. They would have Krampus parades, and they come in rattling the chains and the cowbells and screaming with these masks on. They look demonic. I mean, they look like devils out of hell. Okay, that's what they look like. That would scare these little children. That had to be traumatic. Scare these little children to death. Oh, yeah. But Krampus, the reason they utilized Krampus so much, he was a great way to keep kids in line when you think about it. You better straighten up or Krampus is coming to see you. Definitely.
That's true, because honestly, when I watched the movie Krampus, I had my kids with me. One was 11, one's 13. And the
you were doing your homework. You were doing your homework for the show, right? There you go.
Right. She's like, this was a scary movie. I was like, well, just keep your belief in Christmas and be good, and you don't have to worry about Krampus visiting you.
Let me say this about, here's the demonology connection to this. And me, I'm deep in demonology stuff too. The demonology connection is this, okay? Look at Krampus. This was probably definitely invented by people. Look at that perfect symbol that real demonic entities would not want to use. Definitely, they'd want that symbol, and now it may be used definitely by real demonic forces for all we know. Like I said earlier about possessing people and all that kind of a thing. That would have to be another aspect that's very dark and evil about Krampus. It's not just a scary story for kids anymore. It may be an actual true entity out there for all we know.
Right.
You know, I got to ask you this. I know this is more of a depiction when I was thumbing and browsing the internet just for maybe to conjure up a story, but I just want your thoughts on it, Dennis, whether you're for or against it, but I seen a depiction of Krampus or some other entity with horns and Santa doing battle inside of a person's house where it had a depiction of, I think this entity was looking to steal the child. Do you believe, though, that does? And again, you know, oh my God, Rob's bringing up a fairy tale, but Santa Claus aside, as you were saying, there are protectors. You talked about the green people of the woods. I think there's got to be another spirit that protects us within our homes, though, during certain periods. Maybe the Solitus is one of them.
I kind of go along with that too. Santa symbolizes the goodness in the world.
Yep.
He, you know, a lot of people have described, and actually I've had my own run in with Santa a little bit. I have to tell you about that in a little while. But Santa actually, some people think, may actually be an angel of some sort. And that would not be that far-fetched to me, to put it that way. I don't go along with him being an elf. Maybe he is. Maybe that's part of the makeup on that. But the whole thing is he symbolizes good. And I could see that battle taking place, definitely. If something like that were going to happen, you would have good and evil versus fighting over this child or over this household or whatever. And here's the interesting thing about Krampus. A lot of times he doesn't just come after the child. He can infect the whole household. The whole house. Not that includes the mom, dad, and everybody else in it, whatever age the kids might be. So he's not good. He is a force of evil. Definitely a symbol of that, a force of evil, and Santa would definitely be the symbol for the force of good. I could see them battling that, definitely. But there are rumors that Santa, for 11 months of the year, is a vampire hunter. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, he may be a monster hunter for all we know.
I saw that picture on Facebook about Santa the vampire. Now that I like that.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you got to do something the other 11 months of the year, you know, keep occupied. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Might as well be.
But Santa is that definite force for good. He symbolizes the spirit of, and I say this a lot, if Santa can symbolize the spirit of love and giving and openness that Christmas is really truly about, that we like. It's the childhood magic that's there. And you would not believe, and I talked about this before, there are thousands of Santa sightings every year at this time. I mean, grown people that see this, not just kids. I mean, we can't discard a lot of this. And like I say, I think, my own year encounter with them. And I believe it's something out there as a force of good. But there also is a force of evil. You got to think about that too.
I got to tell you, and I've never said this on a show regarding Santa, you know, because, you know, growing up, of course, Santa, and you dream about Santa right around when Thanksgiving comes. You know, me and my brother, especially when we're very young, oh, cool, Santa, you know. And I must say, then I found out one day when I busted my mom and dad, you know, putting the presents under the tree about 3 a.m. That was always a letdown, right? But then my parents explained, no, this is from mom and dad. Now, mom and dad are getting you things now as well as Santa. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, ma. So, but I do remember being younger, and I remember this. It was a vision. I went down the stairs into where my mom and dad had the Christmas tree set up, and I was looking at the tree. No presents were there, but I swear, everybody, Dennis, Krista, listening, I saw something that appeared to be a man in a red suit from the backside, but it was transparent and mystical looking, almost. I don't want to say ghostly because I don't want to present it as spooky, but when I seen this as a child, and it wasn't solid, but it was transparent. But I can remember this going back up to grab my brother to bring him down to show him. And of course, he was gone. It was gone. But I remember going to bed with a big smile and just nothing but pleasant thoughts were in my head. And I felt really good. And then next morning, I was like, it was just one of those days where it just hit me like I felt good that there was good in the world, even as a little boy. So you never know. I mean, I'm not going to say,
No.
I will not say Santa does not exist. I think he does.
No.
I think he exists in
I
everybody's
believe,
heart.
let me say this. I'll go out on a limb and say I believe he does exist, but not the way we think he does.
Right.
Okay. Not the way we've been told in a lot of things. I think he is actually a true spirit. And here's the secret of Santa Claus. Okay. Sure, he can't make it around the world to every house in one night. Okay. He was the original superhero, by the way.
Yeah.
Before Superman, Batman, there was Santa Claus. Okay. he had the feel. But what if he's a spiritual being that enhances us, influences us to give out of ourselves and our love to our loved ones? He's just as real as a flesh and blood thing in that respect. He influences us to take his job on for him and do what he has done. And there may be special cases like with yours where he actually does show up. You know what I'm saying? He actually manifests. But I feel that if there is a Santa Claus, he's definitely pegged in that pigeonhole as that.
I have to agree with that. I like that assessment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I had my own experience. I'll tell it real quick. It was a dark, cold Christmas Eve, and I have a building behind my house. It's an old building. It has an old tin top on it. Okay, and I have a street light out there now, but there was no street light then. And I was sitting in the house, and it was quiet. I don't know. It was pretty close to midnight, Christmas Eve. It was cold, rainy, dark outside. I hear a noise outside. I said, well, what was that? It sounded, when I first heard it, that sounded like maybe two cars hitting together. Maybe there's a wreck on the front of my house here or something, or what's going on. So I go outside with a flashlight, and I'm looking around. There's nothing out on the street, and then I hear something from the backyard. So I have like a wraparound porch. So I was on the porch. So I kind of go down to the edge of the porch, and I can see a little bit on top of the building. Okay. And there was a tree there at that time. There's no tree there now. I had it taken down. But I could see a little bit on top. And there was a long, dark shadow right on top of this building, okay? And I said, what the heck is that? I couldn't make it out. And here's the real funny part. I never thought about turning my flashlight on, okay? I was like, what was going on? I never thought about turning my flashlight on until afterwards. Anyway, I'll go down the steps. I said, I'm going to go around there and I'm going to try to get it, see what's on top of this building. I thought it was like a flock of birds or something or what, but birds don't fly at night usually, So I said, what the heck is this? And I could hear it and it was still making noise. And it was like a pitter patter, but it wasn't like horse hooves or anything, but there was a noise like that. It was constantly moving. So I go down to the side of the building. By the time I get to the side of the building, whatever this thing is takes off and goes across the building and it's gone up in the sky just like that. Before I could even make out what it was, but like I say, it was long, dark. It was very dark out there. So I look up. I turn the flashlight on, look, and there's nothing there. So the next morning, Christmas Day, I take a ladder and I go out there. I said, I'm gonna see what was on, just for my own eye, see what happened here. And there are two marks on top of this rusty old top of the building here that go all the way down the center of the building to the very much like two sleigh marks.
Yeah.
And that's my story. What it was, I don't know. But if it wasn't Santa, it'll fit the bill till he shows up.
Huh. That's interesting.
What do you make of every year? I purposely do look for these every year. And I go someplace Christmas Eve. Well, my brother and his wife, we always go there Christmas Eve, family gets together. And I always, get on the computer, not disengaging from anybody because there's people all around. So there's a little party in every section of the house. But first of all, years ago, I used to take my niece, and this is how I got the idea. I used to put her on my knee, and we were way back when she's 25 now. So when she was like 5 or 6, I always show her the radar, right, with NASA's radar. And I would show her how Santa and the sleigh would be going across the world, and she would just be so into that, and smiling, and I just got the biggest kick out of that. And then she, of course, got older, and finally one day she said, "Oh, Uncle Robbie, I remember you doing that. That was so cool." I'm like, "Yeah." But then what I got into after that, I started looking for reports of unusual objects in the sky, just because I'm like, "Oh, what the hell? I'm gonna see if the reindeer, or there's something being picked up." And I got to tell you, everybody listening, do it on Christmas Eve. Go on the computer, start scouring this. Now, some is BS, but some I'm not so sure. There's always reports of some unusual objects, not necessarily UFOs, in the sky. And I swear, the last 3 years, I find these things. Do you think there's people putting things out there just because they want to have fun with you? Or do you think we get more sightings and more glitches on the radar during that time? What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. My research has shown that it increases, especially the whole week of Christmas, seems like, and it culminates, especially around Christmas. More lights are seen, and like my incident, the shadow-looking thing, whatever it was, you could term it a UFO. It is an unidentified flying object. It definitely was flying that night. It didn't stay on the ground. A lot of this happens during the Christmas season and on into the New Year's Eve too. And some of this can be fireworks, of course. We know that. There's a lot of people out there shooting off fireworks and doing stuff like that. But this goes beyond that. These are things that people report. Like I said, the Santa sightings, that people actually see the reindeer, the sleigh, the whole works. And here's what I've got to say about that. And I've had people ask me this. Said, didn't you think that he's maybe a mind form of some sort? Is our imagination creating this? Our imaginations are very active around Christmas, okay? Because, like I said, that magical feeling in the air, that different feel, that it's very emotional time of the year, okay? Whether it be very sad and lonely, dark emotions, or happy and giving and loving emotions, it's very emotional. And whenever our emotions are heightened, maybe sometimes our imaginations will kick in. And there's an old saying, be careful what you wish for, you may get it. Sometimes our imaginations may make things come to life for us in that respect. You have to wonder about that, that attribute of it.
I do believe we can manifest things. That's for sure. Krista knows all about that. I think I can manifest things. And I think that a lot of people use that as a practice in whatever walk of life, whether they're in business, on the job, with their family, just for your health. I do believe in the power of positive thinking, your mind, trying to manifest things in your mind for positive. And let me tell you something else, Dennis. I've manifested things like for certain shows, negatives, and I have seen negative too, which I try to avoid.
I've actually had that happen. I've had that happen, Rob, that actually when I've confronted demonic forces, they can take, I'm not going to say your deep innermost thoughts, but I think they take what's on the surface of your subconscious and they can turn it around and use it against you. I've seen that happen. I've experienced it myself. I think you're the owner of your own thoughts, but that subconscious thing is very much like the vibes you put out when you're sleeping. Did you know most demonical attacks, most of them happen during sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in a very vulnerable place. Your subconscious is what? A little bit more open.
Right.
And that's what you got to watch out. And that's why I warn people about these things. Your mind is the key. Your imagination is that golden key. Be very careful because there are forces out there for good and evil that know how to manipulate these things for or against you.
Yeah.
I'm a subscriber to that.
Yep. Absolutely. That's your way of inviting it in, and there you go.
Yeah. And like I said earlier about Santa, if there is a real Santa, he definitely would be a force for good and a force of a good influence on people, getting to open their hearts when they usually keep their hearts closed for the rest of the year. But at Christmas, those hearts open, That's a good thing. I don't see anything wrong with that. But look at the flip side. Look at Krampus and some of these other things that we talked about. And I'm going to talk about Odin and the Wild Hunt in a minute. A lot of these things are not good. And they are forces for bad, and they can be waiting for you, out there if you're not careful. Definitely.
Do you think some of these forces that are out to do no good do take advantage of this time of year because everybody's guards down and everybody wants to believe in Santa? They're just want to have a joyous time, right? 12 months out of the year, we all in life we have our ups and our downs, right? And hopefully right around Christmas is right around a time where we look to have some positivity going into the new year. So do you think that some of these evil forces are out there knowing that our guards are down and they're ready to jump and maybe snatch away somebody?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot more crime that takes place around Christmas, Being ex-law enforcement, I've seen that happen with my own eyes. I worked at Christmas, and I know it seems to heighten itself at certain times, certain cycles, like with the full moon and certain other Saturday nights, definitely a time for it to happen as well. The weekend. But you gotta think about this too, Rob. People's emotions have a lot to do with this. I think their emotional attitude. And like I say, when you open yourself up, you can open yourself up in many different ways to the good or the bad. Okay, you got to remember that they're both waiting there, and you've got to be very careful with how you deal with these things. There are supernatural forces at work, supposedly more so at this time of the year. Like I mentioned, Odin and the Wild Hunt. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wild Hunt very much, but it's a very dark part of Christmas where supposedly this time of the year, on cold, dark, windy nights, Odin rides with the Wild Hunts, and these are warriors doomed sort of to their own kind of hell. They must ride forever with Odin on his 8-legged horse. And if you happen to be caught out at that night, they will sweep you up and you will never be seen again. You will ride forever with the Wild Hunt. You'll participate in their hell. And this is basically the inspiration for that very famous song, The Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Oh,
Definitely.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There's a big connection with that. And this is a very prevalent legend and folklore throughout most of Europe and even in certain parts of the UK. The Wild Hunt. Be very careful. Don't go out on dark, windy nights.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm outside all the time.
Yeah.
I can imagine that 8-legged horse can move pretty fast.
Probably so.
Yeah.
If you
but
blink,
there's that other connection with Odin and Santa Claus that we talked about earlier. And here's what's interesting about that. Odin is sort of seen as a quasi good and bad influence. That's the way the Vikings looked at him. They could sort of the all father, but he could get really rough with you too. He could be kind of mean too sometimes. And he kind of personifies a little bit of Santa Claus by the way he looks and the way he acted. Like you said, Odin was really big on spying on people. Now, of course, when it comes to Santa Claus, he knows when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, that kind of thing. He's got his elves to watch you, okay? And that's where the elf factor comes in, by the way.
Gotcha.
And so has Krampus, by the way. I don't know if you know this. Krampus has evil elves working for him. They come and tell him when you've been bad. So Santa knows when you've been bad or good, but he's got you on the nice list. You don't want to get on the naughty list. You want to be on the nice list. So he's taking, but you're being surveillanced by these guys, okay?
Yeah.
They're watching you very close.
I wonder if Santa gives the naughty list to Krampus.
I don't know. They probably got sort of an agreement there going, Hey, you share your list, I'll share mine. There's a lot of speculation Santa Claus may be the secret head of the CIA too, but I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, But those elves, they're watching us here. We got to be careful. That elf on the shelf is definitely a plant. Okay.
I've never personally done the elf on the shelf before with my kids. They were older when it was popular, so
it's kind of creepy though. He's sitting there staring at you all the time.
Yeah, you know, another thing
Right.
too that I'm trying to get more accustomed to are these little gnomes. You know, everybody has garden gnomes. Okay.
mhm.
Well, I got some elfish gnomes, Santa type gnomes, because I had a guest on and said, this is about a couple months ago. I don't know if Chris, are you around the show with Robin Moonshadow? We're talking about little people.
I think
It might
so.
have been.
Yeah.
And she
I
was a
was.
believer that these little gnomes during certain parts of the year can actually come to life. So I had these gnomes. I got some in my house and I got some outside. And I've been watching these guys. Maybe it's because I watched them too much, but I'm waiting for them, you know, to like be out of place or just go move from an area to an area, not necessarily see them move. So Dennis, what's your thought on these gnomes, especially these elfish type gnomes? Do you believe that throughout the year that they maybe they don't come to life, but maybe they attract the real ones?
Well, here's the interesting thing about it. In certain parts of South America, it's very prevalent belief that these things do live, that they do come to life, move around, and actually kidnap children and do all kinds of bad stuff. Well, when you get to elves, you got to kind of remember this about elves. They're not the little bitty guys that you think about, Walt Disney, elves. Actually, elves are depicted more like J.R. Tolkien's elves in Lord of the Rings. They were pretty well good-sized beings. They were supernatural beings, though, because if you go back to actually trace their supposed origin, they are fallen angels. Okay, they're a part of the fallen angels kind of a thing. I won't get into that now. This is another subject for another time. But anyway, they have a supernatural connection with them. But now, if you put up symbols of something, okay, and let me tell you this, okay, and it's a good little point that you made there. You put up a symbol of something, whatever it may be, whether it's an elf on the shelf or it's a gnome or whatever, that will attract them, I think, because that's sort of like not worship, but sort of you're recognizing them, sort of recognizing that they exist. That's why in demonology we don't like to speak the names of demons because it gets their attention,
right,
real quick. You know, and that's why Native American people don't want to talk about skinwalkers. It gets their attention. You don't want their attention. You don't want them showing up saying, "Hey, you've been thinking about me or talking about me." I think gnomes would be the same way, definitely.
So if you pay enough attention to something and give that intent to something, you're kind of inviting it in then, right?
Exactly. Just like the vampires, you know, the very famous thing about the vampire has to be invited in. These black-eyed children want to be invited in.
Right.
When I used to go to do a lot of location cleansings and stuff, I would always ask people to invite me in. That gave me authority there. Okay. When you invite something into your house, whether it be in as a statue form or picture or whatever, be very careful because you're sort of issuing an invitation. And something might take you up on them. Something might answer that invitation. I actually invited the Men in Black one time and I got a call from them. Okay. I actually met them in a bad way. Be careful what you invite or who you ask to show up. They may do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we don't have a lot of time now because we've got to go to break, but maybe when we come back, could we maybe talk a little bit about Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, we do have Dennis Christmas Carroll joining us. So this has been a great first half of the show. And for people that are newer, we take a 5-minute break. Don't go anywhere. We're just shutting down for 5 minutes because we have to do something for the podcast side and the radio side. So we do this for every show. For those of you that are new, it's a good time for you to, refreshen up your drink, your snack, whatever you got to get going on. And there's also some advertising that we run for the 5 minutes. And we're coming up just on that hour with Mr. Dennis Carroll. And yeah, we'll do a little Charles Dickens, and maybe towards the end of the show, something maybe we'll come up with something special for everybody. I don't know yet. But with that being said, I just got to find the button, and we're going to move over to the 5-minute break. I got so many different pictures in here now. Here we go. Don't go nowhere. We'll be back.
nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show Beyond BMR. We got a fantastic show with Dennis Carroll. He's a paranormal investigator. He dabbles with the cryptids. He's an author. He's a demonologist. He is pretty much everything. He's everything and a whole lot more. Every time Dennis is on, I learn something new. Hope you are too. Thank you for subscribing to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. If this is your first time here, subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. The Blondes, the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. On Mondays is Texas Front Porch, 7 Central, 8 in the East. Tuesdays, right back here, Beyond BMR with Krista, 8 Central, 9 in the East. Wednesday nights is on Texas Front Porch, the Diva Dimension with Tex and Miss Diva, 9 Central, 10 in the East. Thursday afternoons, 1 in the afternoon, that's Eastern Standard Time. Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, along with Tex. Thursday nights, the Blondes, the Booze Paranormal Podcast, 8 Central, 9 in the East. Friday nights, more Woo with the Booze, the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo, 8 Central, 9 in the East. Saturdays, back on Texas Front Porch, Infamous Minds, It's True Crime. It's 3 p.m. It's on Saturday. I also would like to thank everybody who's bought my book, Bigfoot Michigan Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters. You can find that on Amazon. The link is pinned up top. Thank you for that, for those that have bought it. When Amazon comes calling, it's all analytics these days. So, leave a review if you would. It does help me out greatly for that. Don't forget the super chats are open. Great way to help support what we all do around here. Greatly appreciated. And I really appreciate my guest and, of course, my lovely co-host, Miss Krista. How's it going, Krista?
It's good. I'm doing good.
Great show with Dennis, as always. And you wanted to get into a little Charles Dickens in the
why not?
Of the holiday season. And I'm sporting my Chris. I don't know if anyone noticed. I don't know if you watched my ho ho ho.
I see a Christmas tree too.
And there's right dab in the middle. Yeah. So I picked that up not too long ago for the remainder of the season.
There you go.
So with that being, thank you for everybody for coming on in. For you new folks, please subscribe to our channels. And of course, we'll have links for all of Dennis's channels, and we'll have Dennis talk about that a little too, because he's got a lot of stuff going on YouTube and on his internet websites. So bring it up, Dennis.
Good to be back.
Thanks. It's always great having you back, Dennis. I learn so much every time you're on, and I follow you on all the shows that you go on. Before we get started, tell everybody what you've got on YouTube and everything else so we can get that under wraps as well. So I know lovely Lily Pond has been dropping your links as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I have a show with Grizzly Chris every Sunday night at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, called Demonology Today. We're getting some very interesting topics on that. I also have my own podcast, which is Paranormal Point of View, which comes on Friday nights at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about all things in a paranormal perspective. And then my main show is Hunting the Shadows, and that's on Wednesday night at 9:00 p.m. And that's when the hunt begins. We have some very interesting stuff on that too. And my website is DennisWCarroll.com. My books can be found on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And you can reach me at DennisWCarroll@gmail.com. That's it.
And I will provide those links, Dennis, if you want to shoot them over to me later or tomorrow. And Lily does a great job, as always, in chat. Thanks, Lily. And all of my moderators do a great job putting out links for the guests. Yep. They're always on top of it. Thank you to my mods. Thanks, everybody, for coming in. I do appreciate everybody that comes in and tunes in every Tuesday night and Thursday afternoon, as well as the rest of our channels with Tex and the Blondes. We do appreciate that. You guys don't. We really appreciate you guys. So,
yep, absolutely.
So thank you so much for that. So, Krista, you wanted to get into something a little more wholesome, perhaps? I don't know how wholesome Dickens is, but
it's such a great story, though, if you really think about it, I mean, at least the movies have made it a great story,
Well, I can tell you, I know Dennis probably has a twist on all that, so we're gonna let him.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, I'm a big fan of Charles Dickens, definitely, and Edgar Allan Poe and Washington Irving. They were three great friends with each other, And as I was saying earlier tonight, the greatest ghost story of all is A Christmas Carol. There's no other ghost story that's as famous as this one. And it's touched us all in many different ways. But there are some other things about it. I've studied it close. I read it at least 2 or 3 times a year, especially around Christmas. I love it. I watch all the different movies. I have my favorites. I love George C. Scott. He did a great job with that.
Yeah.
I talk about a lot of these movies on Paranormal Point of View and movie reviews and stuff like that. But the movies are great. The book is much better, though, and it's not that long of a read. It's really a very short novelette, really, more than a novel. But he had some very interesting things in there. And like I said earlier, he was really a fan of Washington Irving. And of course, Washington Irving, as we know of, from Sleepy Hollow and all that stuff, and the Dutch community and all that. And Charles Dickens said, every night I go to bed with a book of Washington Irving under my arm. So that's how much he loved Washington Irving. Wow. And he was big pen pals with Edgar Allan Poe. They wrote to each other a lot. And here's the interesting thing. Charles Dickens had a pet raven. And Edgar Allan Poe knew about this. He talked about it in letters with him. And I guarantee you without doubt that's where the raven comes from.
Right.
But if you go to the Charles Dickens Museum in London, they have that stuffed raven in part of the collection of the Charles Dickens. Wow. Well, you just see, yeah. So there's some interesting connections with these literary greats.
Yeah.
That, when we talk about it, but Charles Dickens actually single-handedly saved Christmas. Christmas was gone the way out. Nobody was celebrating it that much. Nobody thought it was it was really just a religious holiday. In other words, you just did the Christ Mass and you went home and that was it. And I don't even think some people got off work and all that for it. You hear about that in A Christmas Carol a lot. If you must have the whole day off, be back the next day earlier. They didn't even want to give you a day off for Christmas, So it was on the way out. But Charles Dickens revived our traditions. Although a lot of these traditions are connected to paganism, we have changed it over the years into our own symbolism of what it means to us, And it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, of course. But traditions are part of our identity. They're very important. Our folklore and our culture are our identity. That's who we are. That's how very important this is. And Charles Dickens revived that and brought that back from obscurity. Take a look at the Christmas tree, the symbol. It symbolizes the goddess Astor, by the way. I don't know if you know this. This is really some freaky stuff. It's got a connection to Easter here. Easter, that's where you get the name Easter from. It has nothing to do with Christ. Actually, we commemorate the goddess Astor with the tree, symbolizing it's got to be an evergreen tree, symbolizing what I said earlier: eternity, immortality, never dying, always alive. We brought that tree in and decorated it sort of as an offering to her. But we don't look at it that way anymore. That's part of our tradition. We don't think about that part of it anymore, although we still do it. And think about the milk and cookies for Santa. That is really goes back to the time when we left little treats out for the gods, so we would get their favor for things. That's part of that too. And in certain countries, by the way, they leave out oats and stuff for the reindeer, by the way. That's another little bribe, definitely. Anyway, Charles Dickens knew about all this, but I've studied a lot of what he read. And I'm going to say this about Charles Dickens, okay? Here's the interesting part, and a lot of people never talk about. That son of a gun was definitely a paranormalist. Okay. He knew a lot about the supernatural. When you read about the ghosts and how they put in their appearance and what they look like, this guy knew his ghosts. Okay, he knew his apparitions. He talked about the chains that you hear. He said there's one part in A Christmas Carol where he says you always hear about haunted houses. You hear about the sounds the ghosts make with the chains and the moaning, and he had that in there. See, so he was very familiar. And if I'm not mistaken, I can't be sure. I'd have to check this. I believe he was a member of the very prestigious Ghost Club, of which I'm a member in London. I believe he was a member of it for a while. It goes back to like 1860 some odd. But anyway, he knew his ghosts, definitely. But here's some interesting things that he talks about in A Christmas Carol. And one that really jumped out at me the last time I read this, it kind of shook me. And I love it when I find something different, something new. He has an interesting little thing that he says to his nephew, Fred. Remember, Fred come in and he was, talking to Fred, his nephew. And he says, if I had my way about it, Fred, every fool that goes around with Merry Christmas on his lips would be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly to his heart.
Ooh.
Wow.
What's one of the ways you kill a vampire? You use a hollywood on him, too. Yeah, the holly is a sacred tree. You stake a vampire with holly. How did he know that? Right. He had to do some research, definitely, without doubt. Wow. You see a lot of stuff like that, that kind of jumps out at you. My favorite part is when he said that Marley was dead as a doornail. I said, now, if I was going to, have a dead kind of an ironmongery, I would say a coffin nail, but we always say doornail, so I'll stick with that. So the guy had a supernatural bent to him, definitely. That's what I like about Charles Dickens.
Yeah. I like all the movies. I watch them several times a year. Well, around now, for sure. And I like how the ending is, I mean, you go through your life and you reflect and, past, present, and future,
Yeah. But the good thing about A Christmas Carol, the uplifting part of it, is that it gives us hope that we all can change for the better.
Absolutely.
Whether it takes ghosts to do that or what. And these ghosts can be looked at more or less not like ghosts, but more like angels. Kind of an appearance. Kind of very angelic, in that respect.
We were talking earlier about, the spirit of the holidays, we're talking about Christmas. And how, there's mostly it's an uplifting time of year. And we were talking about, the Santa uplifting everybody. And they were talking about the bad side with Krampus or evil spirits. But, I was thinking too, perhaps people that I think the spirits, and you can maybe refer to them, maybe Dennis, as angels visiting a lot of us during this time of year.
Oh, yeah.
Especially those of us that are in despair. Because, again, it's not a happy time for everybody. And I think that's a great time of year for people. And maybe an angel, they do visit us, right? Maybe a lot of these things we see at night, maybe like I saw the man, the Santa, he's transparent. Maybe it was an angel and put me a smile on my face when I went to bed at ease that night. So I think there's a lot there's a lot to that.
That's like that, that statement, be kind to all strangers that you meet, for there by some of the entertained angels unawares. There are angels definitely out there walking among us. I know that without a doubt. I've seen the demons. I know that there've got to be angels definitely at work. And there's like that saying, I think it's a very famous line from the movie The Bishop's Wife. Said, Cary Grant said, you may walk down the street and look into the face of a murderer, or it could be the face of an angel. You never know what you're going to run. But at this time of the year, when emotions are heightened, and like I said, we're more open than any other time, this would be the perfect time for angelic visits or interaction with angels and spirits like that. And even the spirits of our ancestors, perhaps, for all we know. A lot of cultures in the world commemorate that, especially like the Chinese and the Chinese New Year and all that stuff. They set a place in their house for their departed loved ones at the table. The ancestors are commemorated, so you don't forget them, But this is a spiritual time of the year. We've got to remember that. And these spirits are out there, whether they be bad or angelic, whatever the case may be, doing what they do. But I could tell you, and I'm going to be doing a story this Wednesday night. I'm going to be doing an actual program this Wednesday night on Hunting the Shadows about angels, all about angels.
Okay,
If
cool.
you don't want to miss this one. This is a great one because this is one of the most fascinating subjects you will ever encounter. And angelology is interesting as all get out.
Yeah. And then I think on Friday night, we have you on Blondes and Boobs, and that's what we were going to talk about with angels also.
Oh, wow. Well, we don't know. We don't want to divulge too much into this, on this show because Wednesday and then what Thursday night you said, Krista?
Friday.
Okay, Friday. That'll be fantastic shows to check out for sure. I was going to ask, so maybe I don't. Well, I'm gonna skip that. I got to tell you a little story. And Krista, I normally always tell Krista all my newer encounters that I come across because Krista's got these new hours of work. And Dennis, I want you to chime in on this and everyone listening. You guys, the story about the flagpole with my father, correct? I mean, I'm not going to get into that story. People,
Yes.
I've told last week, I think it was. So I was very worried because I have a house key that I have on a Detroit Lions bottle opener. Okay. And I have separate set of keys I have all my keys, with my car and all that stuff. Yeah, everything's on that. But I also have a separate house key because I do a lot of walking in the morning and I lock up the house, but I don't want to have the bulky keys on me, right? I just want to go travel light. Sometimes I don't even bring a phone with me. But this is I don't know what happened here. Like, again, I had a visit by my dad about 5 years ago, helping me with this flag. Now, there's a pole in the center of the room that I'm in right now, outside the studio area. And it's just a pole. I got a couple hooks on it. And the only thing I have on that's like a flashlight. And I've got it wrapped with Christmas stuff. I'm looking at it, boom. And there's a hook. So about 3 weeks ago, everybody, I went on a walk and I get home and I don't have my key on me. I can't get in my house. Long story short, I get in my house and I'm looking all over this house for this key. And also my Detroit Lions, and it's connected to this big silver and blue Lions bottle opener. You can't miss it. It's a little bit bigger than your average bottle opener. And there's the one key. And 3 weeks I'm looking and I'm like, man, I got to go get another house key made. And so the day that I decided to go get this house key, I'm walking around the house for one last look. Now, this pole that I'm referring to now, it's right next to a recliner chair, which I happen to use quite often. I'm in it every day. And the pole is not even 2 feet from me. And I can look at it and see the decorations I put on it. Okay. So I'm getting ready, everybody, to go get the new key made. I'm coming down the stairs into the area, and I look at the pole, and sitting there on a hook is the house key. And I've been looking at that for over 3 weeks, excuse me. And the day that I'm going to get a new one made, you can see it as plain as day. I know nobody put it there. I don't know how it got there. I even made mention to my dad, yeah, man, I got to get this key. Because after having one experience with my dad, I do talk to him quite often in my mind, right? Especially at night. And Dennis, I swear, this post, it's next to me when I sit in this chair. It's 2 feet away. I look at it every day. You can see it walking from a section of the house. 3 weeks goes by and I see this thing. I'm thinking, am I going crazy, or did I have another spiritual awakening, or how did that get there? Because I can tell it hadn't been there in 3 weeks. All of a sudden, it shows up the day I'm looking to make a new key. And I know I'm not blind, and I know I'm not crazy, and there it is, as plain as day.
Maybe it was an angel.
I have heard a lot of stories like that over the years. A lot of research that I've done in this. And let me say this, okay? It's the little things in life sometimes that give us a nudge, And if you ever have angelic help, they don't draw attention to themselves. You'll never know an angel has interacted with you most of the time. And if you do, you are allowed to do that. That's a very special thing if you allow to remember that. But you think about such a thing as just a small thing like a key, okay? But it was a big thing to you. It was bothering you, you know, to that extent. But a small thing like a key, you would think, angels or something, good spirits like that would not be interested in something small. But I remember another line from that movie I just quoted, The Bishop's Wife, and it's from the Bible too, by the way, where that angel says, "Are we not concerned with even the smallest sparrow?"
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I think even with little small things, we are given a little nudge just to say nothing, just to say, "Hey, we're here," you know.
Well,
We're here.
when you were telling your story, Rob, I blacked myself out because in my living room under my tree, I've got presents in there wrapped.
Yeah.
And one of the toy trucks started going off.
Did it really?
Yeah, that's why I blacked myself out. I'm like, what the heck?
Oh no.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, a lot of times, we get little signs. You get little things just to say, "Hey, everything's gonna be all right." Here's a little nudge, here's a little pat on the back. You need it once in a while.
And then my investigative instincts took over because again, for 3 weeks, I didn't see this, and again, it's 2 feet from my lounge chair, and I even went down the stairs and I put the key back on the pole. You guys, if you are unfamiliar with my house, where this key was located on this pole, if you came and walked in that direction, you guys, unfamiliar, would see it. So that was what was getting me, who I'm very familiar with everything in this house. And there's just no way in 3 weeks I didn't see it. It had to be there, either hanging there all this time, or there was some other intervention, I mean, and hey, and I believe it was an intervention from something in the spirit, an angel.
Well, look, ask yourself this too. You gotta ask yourself this, Rob. How could I not see something that was not there?
That's again.
There was. It wasn't there.
No,
that's it.
I would swear up and down it wasn't there, but either it was there and I'm just blind, or it wasn't there and I was helped out because, for whatever the reason, I wasn't meant to leave the house that day to get the key made. Maybe if I'd have done that, maybe something was about to happen, and maybe that was protection over me
to prevent you from. Yes. Yeah. We don't know. I was gonna say, we get these little nudges, we get these little directions sometimes, and we don't really know where they come from. But maybe it's a part of a bigger plan that we don't know about. Like I said, are we not concerned with even the lowliest sparrows? Even the very small, fine details are looked over,
I got a weird story about a disappearance. So this has been 25 years ago. And my friend Patty, her house is very active. She's lived there for years. They're used to it. It's there. And her son was getting ready to go to work, and he threw one of them frozen burritos in the microwave, threw it in there, walked away, and we were all in the kitchen. All of us. We were in the kitchen. He walked away to get dressed, came back to get his burrito, and it was gone. I kid you not. The burrito disappeared. No, that's not the end of the story.
No,
then about
I might have
4
been
hours later, not kidding, that burrito showed back up in the microwave.
Oh, geez, see?
I can't explain that. We were all standing there in the kitchen. Nobody got the burrito out. It was just, that was very weird.
I had a lady tell me one time, listen to this. This is a Christmas one for you, okay? She had a very special Christmas ornament. This was a very special thing to her. I mean, it had a lot of, memories attached to it and everything. And I forget now, I think it was like a little bulldog type looking little thing. It was a Christmas ornament. It had Merry Christmas on it or whatever. She said that she would hang it up every year on the tree, and she hung it up. She hung it up like always. And when she finished the tree, she'd always leave that for last. And she hung it up, and she said that next morning she come down there to look at the tree and she looked and it was gone. She said, I looked everywhere all over that house. I searched it top to bottom, attic to basement, under couches. I moved. I said I was frantic because I love that ornament. You know, that was ornament had a lot of meaning to it. She said, I looked for a week. I looked for that thing. So one morning I come downstairs and there it is laying on the carpet in front of the tree.
Wow. And it's just
she said, there's no way that thing could have been there all that time. She would have stepped on it, you know? I mean,
you know,
something had to put it there.
Yeah. My really good friend is the guy who lived in the Sally house and in Atchison, Kansas. And when he lived in that house, his remote disappeared, could not find his remote. And this was like, I don't know, a couple months later, his remote showed up at his mother's house. How it got there, nobody knows, but it was weird how it was in his house, which is a very bad demonic house.
Okay.
And it showed up in his mother's house like a month or two later.
Yeah, and right off the top of my head, nobody that I know of, including myself, we don't put our remotes in our pockets. We don't, you know, I mean, that's wild.
He didn't even go to his mom's house. It wasn't like, you know, he went over there and might have had it on him or something. Wasn't anything like that. It was the weirdest thing.
I'll tell you a story right quick. It happened to me when I was a kid. I was probably about 15 years old, and I was very down. You know how you are at pubescence. You know, you have your mood swings and everything. I was very down that day. I was walking along. I felt like the world was against me. Nothing was going right. This was the end. You know what I'm saying? I just felt like I was hopeless. Everything was hopeless, and that was it. I was walking along, and I said, and I just thought to myself, well, God, even you don't care, you know? And all of a sudden, I see something shiny, and I look down, and there's this little pocket knife.
Okay.
Little silver pocket knife, and it has my initials on it.
No,
I still have that knife. Okay.
Wow.
And I said, wait a minute. Somebody's trying to tell me something here. Okay.
Wow.
Of all the things, all the places in the world, to find something with your initials on it.
No, that is
I still have it. I have to remember that every time I look at that knife.
Yeah, you know.
Somebody was sending a message, definitely.
Yeah, to me, that's a sign.
There's all sorts of signs, Krista and Dennis and everyone listening. I tell you, I got one more. I've told this before, but it's a cool one. You heard it, Krista. Oh, well, actually, Krista, you're surprised to hear this one. You heard me say it a couple of weeks ago. And it's always, I always get these cool interventions. I won't say intervention, these stories or happenings are right around Christmas a lot. And for those listening, okay, I am not, I believe in God, right? I don't really go to church, stuff like that, but I believe in God. I say my prayers, you know, and this and that. That's how I carry. That's my belief system.
Yep.
So, and I don't really wear jewelry. I got a silver necklace that was given to me from somebody, which is cool. I wear that once in a while, but I'm not a ring guy. I don't have crosses, crucifixes. You know, I've got a Jesus picture put away in the bedroom somewhere, but I don't carry like artifacts like crosses in my house. So this is the last Christmas time. I'm at Kroger, and I'm in one of the aisles, and I'm looking for something. And this woman, she's about 5 feet away from me. I'm wearing a jacket, everybody, which was a new jacket that I washed it once. And when I wash my jackets, I look through all the pockets. I'm very fastidious about that, right? I'm anal about emptying my pockets. Emptied the pockets of this jacket, cleaned it up, put it in the washer, put it on, checked everything, went out the door. So again, I'm at Kroger, and this woman, an older woman, she's about 5 feet from me, and I can feel eyes on me, right? How you get that feeling? I get it all the time, that feeling, right? I look at this lady, and she smiles at me, and she goes, "Merry Christmas, the Lord Jesus is with you." I said, "Well, thank you. Same to you." I'm awkward when people bless, you know, I'm like, "Well, same to you. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas." So I had a nice feeling. So for whatever the reason is, everybody, I go to reach, and the woman's 5 feet from me, and my pockets are zipped up. For whatever the reason, I unzip my right pocket. I reach in, and again, I don't carry crucifixes, but I had to say this because I got this was in my pocket, a silver crucifix. And this is not mine. I don't buy things like this. I have nothing like this in my house. Maybe as a little boy for my first Holy Communion, I had a rosary. And I look,
that's crazy.
I look to the right, to look, because I thought that I had a connection with this woman. I'm thinking she's gone. Now, everybody, we are in the middle of the Kroger shopping aisle. We're in the middle, and she was an older woman. There's no way she could have motored down that aisle that fast, because typically right after we said Merry Christmas and such, I reached in my pocket just for whatever the reason. She was gone in an instant. There's no way she didn't run down the aisle, and I know she couldn't walk that fast down the aisle. But I had this. I forever saved this because it must mean something. So I keep it right here in front of my work area. And yeah, and again, that was another weird thing that's happened to me. You know,
if you saw her again, would you recognize her?
Yeah, I would. I picture in my head what she looks like exactly. She has a white hair, was all flowing back, a nice tan face. She looked Italian, very small, petite, very nice, beautiful looking lady. Really, yeah, I would recognize her in a heartbeat. But that was such a profound moment. How did that happen? So hey, again, a lot of these things, which are pretty cool, have happened to me, around the Christmas time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And like I said earlier, our spirits are open to the good and the bad, and we got to be careful about that. We need to guard against the bad stuff. We kind of be on guard against that, but we need to be open to the good stuff, And I think, Rob, things like that, what you're talking about, and Krista, what you're talking about, they happen to us for a reason. Okay, they're not just signs to point the way, but they're just sort of like reassurances. I've done a lot of spiritual research over the years, a lot of haunted houses, along with the cryptozoology and all the rest of this stuff. And I've actually had a lot of cases where people have said, I saw my mother or I saw somebody, and I say, well, did it scare you? Did it scare you? Were you frightened by it? They said, no, I might have been a little shocked, surprised, but I wasn't scared. I said, well, that is a sign for you to show you that, hey, everything's okay.
That's right.
And we need a little pat on the back like that once in a while, and I think we get them.
I also think that when we dream of our past loved ones, I don't think that's a dream. I think that is them actually, communicating with
Krista, people that are emotionally attached to us, that tie, I don't think, is even cut by death.
I would agree. Yeah.
I think it's stronger than death. There are ties stronger than death, definitely.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I have to, I agree with that one. And that's, of course, a topic for another time, too, right? So many different topics that we always have to put on the table. There's about 5 different subjects we can table for down the road, Dennis?
Right.
Somebody write that down, I always say, because I won't. I'll forget it.
Yeah, well, Krista won't forget it.
Yeah, you definitely got enough for next year to bring Dennis back several times.
Yeah, this has been a great show. And, we are coming up at the 90 minutes. And Dennis, thanks once again for coming on. One last time, where can we all find you for those of us that want to check you out further?
Okay, well, like I said, this is Chris. I have Demonology Tonight every Sunday night at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have my podcast, Hunting the Shadows. That's every Wednesday night at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Friday nights at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Paranormal Point of View. I have a website, DennisWCarroll.com. You can reach me through that if you need to. Or you can Gmail me at DennisWCarroll@gmail.com. And my books are available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for that.
And I gotta go feed the reindeer, okay?
Yeah, well, I figured you did Christmas Carol. I figured that much. And I know you mentioned it earlier, Krista, but Thursday night, what do you got going on Thursday night?
So Thursday night, we have Heather Mosier from Small Town Monsters. And we're not talking Bigfoot, though. We're talking the Villisca Axe Murder House and the Axe Murders.
Ooh.
It was a book. And we're going to talk about that and how
awesome.
A lot of these
and then, of course, And then you're gonna have the great Dennis Carroll on Friday night. How
On
about
Friday
that?
night. Yep.
Everybody's
Yeah.
privileged to have
Well, and
Dennis on.
tomorrow night, don't forget. what you're
We're gonna
on,
be
Rob.
doing some ghosts. So we're gonna be doing some good ghost stories Friday
Yeah.
night, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, what's that, Krista?
Tomorrow night, don't forget what you're going to be
Oh
doing.
yeah, I'll
too.
be on Barton Only's show Wednesday. I think 9 in the East Wednesday night
9
with
on the East, 8
Barton
Central.
and Letitia, and I think Kristen and Brandy will be there.
Mhm.
We're I guess we're doing my dog man, my Bigfoot encounter, excuse me, and some theories behind that, because I did the show Tuesday night with Sibylla Irwin, who brought the rendition of my
Mhm.
my Bigfoot out, which is fantastic. Dennis, I'll have to show you that one because it's very, oh my God, it set me back a ways. But we're going to discuss some theories,
Mhm.
because I got a lot of people that after that show sent me some pretty cool theories that I never thought about, which is why I love doing these shows and doing my story, because every time I tell it, Dennis, I get a different something that gets my wheels turning once again, which is why I love doing this. And
Yeah.
and from some reputable people too that caught the show Tuesday. So if you guys haven't seen that Tuesday night, go check it out. I unveiled my Bigfoot. It's the full rendition of the humanoid looking creature and then the demonic metamorphosis that it took. So that was a great show with Sibylla Irwin last Tuesday night. So yeah, go check that out.
Yep, for sure.
Once again, Dennis, it's always a pleasure. I want to thank everybody for coming in, joining us
Thank
tonight.
you.
It was a fantastic show,
Mhm.
and I'll be looking forward to watching you Wednesday night for what you've got going on, because I always try to catch your shows. I always watch the replay if I'm out there live, Dennis, because you put out great information,
Yeah.
and I am a big fan of yours. So
Well, thank you. I'm a big fan of yours and Krista.
Thank
Bonds
you.
and Booze. I watch them a lot too. And the Wednesday night will be the Angel Show, so maybe you'll get a chance to check it out.
Be awesome.
Yep, absolutely. I'll be there. I'll be there. Well, I've got Bart's show, but I'll again replay.
Watch
whatever.
the replay. I tell you what, there are so many good shows out there that you can't watch all the lives. I have to watch replay.
Yeah, and don't forget, everybody, everything's free on YouTube, so just go into check out the playlists and watch everybody. Watch Dennis, Krista, Rob, Tex, all of us. And with that being said, thank you once again, and we will see you guys a little bit later during the week.
Yep. Good night.
Godspeed.
Thank you.